I didn't plan to start a war on Christmas Eve. I planned to bring two sleepy kids, pass the mashed potatoes, and go home with stories about awkward sweaters. Instead, my father looked across the table and repeated what my sister had been saying for weeks. "Don't bring your kids to your niece's birthday." My son froze. My daughter's smile fell off her face like a paper ornament losing its string. "I'm Morgan Hale. I work in management, which means I solve other people's messes for a living. At home, my job is smaller and much more serious. Keep the world fair enough that two little humans can sleep." Lately, fairness had been losing. My sister Lena booked the fanciest party venue in town and somehow convinced herself that no cousins would feel grown up rather than cruel. The family chat called it a small detail. My kids called it what it was: confusing pain. I waited for an adult to be an adult. No one volunteered. The pressure came wrapped in holiday manners. "It's her choice. Don't make a scene. They won't even notice." Both of my children noticed. So did my husband, Ethan Cole, who watches the way lifeguards watch water. Quietly, constantly, ready. When my father said it out loud at the table, like a rule, like a fact, I pushed my chair back. I pulled out my phone. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't apologize for breaking the peace that required my kids to disappear. I just drew a line and stepped over it. Before I tell you what he said and what happened after I walked out, tell me, what time is it for you right now and where are you watching from? I'm curious to see how far this story will travel. That night, the kitchen smelled like garlic and patience. My phone lit up with Lena, and her voice arrived already smiling. She talked fast, like she was letting me in on something desirable. Chloe's 8th birthday, the trendiest venue downtown, the one everyone was posting about. I smiled on reflex. Sounds great. The kids will love it. A small pause opened. "Well, actually, we're keeping it tighter. Just close family and Chloe's school friends. No cousins this year." I turned the heat down and kept my tone level. "What does that mean, exactly?" "It means you and Ethan are invited," she said, polished and warm. "But we're not really doing the cousin thing. Chloe wants it to feel more grown up." Across the room, my daughter lifted a drawing toward me, proud and expectant. I swallowed. "They're her cousins. They adore her. And I adore you," Lena replied smoothly. "But this is what we decided." I said it as calmly as I could. "If our kids weren't invited, we wouldn't attend either." She chuckled the way people do when they think a line can be massaged away. She warned me Mom wouldn't be happy and hung up before I had the chance to make anything clearer. I told Ethan after bedtime. He listened without commentary, then nodded once. "Then we're not going." I thought that would be the end. It didn't end. It leaked. The family group chat pinged alive with balloon pallets, catering options, parking tips, every logistical kindness except the one that mattered. I didn't answer. 2 days later, my mother called with her signature mix of affection and disappointment. I told the story slowly, like guiding someone toward a truth I hoped they would choose. She paused, then took the familiar exit. "It's Lena's choice. It's her daughter's birthday. You can't expect her to invite everyone." "I'm not expecting anything," I said. "I'm choosing not to attend something that deliberately excludes my children." "You're making this bigger than it needs to be," she sighed. "Just come. The kids won't even notice." "They will," I said. "They will when every other grandchild is there except them." Pressure arrived from other angles. My brother texted, "Is there drama?" I gave him the short version. He said he got it, but he'd still bring his kids. Didn't want to rock the boat. Aunts chirped about unity and not letting small things ruin family ties. Small things. I kept hearing Lena's steady, reasonable voice in my head, the sound people use when they've convinced themselves they're not being unkind. Ethan noticed before I said more. He started coming home earlier, taking quiet inventory, asking fewer questions. That was his tell. The lifeguard stillness when the water looks calm but isn't. A week before the party, Mom tried again with softer edges. "Chloe will be so sad if you aren't there," she said. "People will ask questions." "They can," I replied. "I'm not explaining why my kids weren't invited." "Well, maybe you should, so people don't get the wrong idea." "The wrong idea about what?" I nearly laughed. That I'm difficult? That I can't take a hint? That I don't know my place? The day before the party, Lena posted one more cheerful reminder. Time, dress code, parking, finished with a smiling emoji like a Band-Aid on a cracked window. I put my phone face down. On the carpet, my daughter taught her brother a game she had invented. He kept messing it up. She kept correcting him without raising her voice. They had no idea that somewhere else a door was being closed with their names on the other side. That night, Ethan asked, "You okay?" "I am," I said. "Tomorrow might not be." "Then we'll handle tomorrow when it shows up." Morning arrived bright, an insult to heavy hearts. We took the kids to the aquarium, their favorite blue-lit tunnel where everything floats and nothing feels urgent. For a while, it worked. My son pressed his face to the glass to watch a stingray drift like a moving shadow. My daughter laughed when the penguins arrowed into the water. I told myself we had protected them. Then my daughter tugged my sleeve. "Is today Chloe's birthday?" It felt like a plate dropping. I crouched so we were eye level. "We're not going to that party," I said carefully. Her smile went out like a light. "Why not? I'm her cousin." "Sometimes parties are just for certain people," I said, choosing words that wouldn't break something I couldn't fix. She blinked, fast and brave. "Does Aunt Lena not like us?" My son started crying before I could answer, loud and hiccuping. Ethan picked him up and pressed his forehead to his hair. "We're going home," he said quietly. The drive was a soft chorus of sniffles. I kept my eyes on the road because the rearview mirror was a trapdoor I wasn't ready to open. At home, I did triage, a movie, snacks, blankets. Children recalibrate quickly. Adults do it slowly and with grief. Ethan disappeared into his office. I heard the low murmur of his voice through the door, measured, not angry. The calm scared me more than shouting ever could. An hour later, my phone vibrated itself toward the edge of the counter. Missed calls and messages stacked. Mom, my brother, Lena. I walked to Ethan's office. He looked up, composed but settled, the posture of a decision already made. "They made our children cry," he said. "That's not something I'm willing to overlook." I didn't ask immediately. The way he sat, shoulders squared, phone face down, told me whatever he had set in motion had already left the station. "What did you do?" He turned the screen toward me. Email threads. Subject lines about timelines, approvals, risk flags. "Lena's husband has been trying to land a major contract," Ethan said. "It's been dragging for months." I knew that part. Lena had framed it as their turn toward security. Bigger house, steadier schools, less strain. What does that have to do with us? "I'm the person who decides whether that contract moves forward," he said simply. The room shrank. "I didn't know." "You weren't supposed to," he said. "Different structures, different names. I prefer it that way." I looked again, this time understanding. A decision already sent. Final. "You ended it?" "Yes." Relief was not my first impulse. Fear was. "Tell me you didn't do this because of a party." He shook his head. "I did it because someone decided our children were disposable, and the chorus told us to swallow it. I don't partner with people who treat hurting kids as negotiable." My phone buzzed again. I answered Lena. The palish was gone, replaced by panic. "What is happening?" "Ryan just got a call. The deal is dead." "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I know exactly what happened," I said. "Ethan made a business decision." "Over a birthday party?" "No, over how you treated my kids." "You're going to destroy our finances because Chloe didn't want little kids running around?" "They're not generic little kids," I said. "They're your niece and nephew." Silence crackled. Then my mother joined in, voice trembling with anger. "You've gone too far. This is punishment. This is revenge. This is consequence, I said. We tried to talk. You told me the kids wouldn't notice. Lena's voice softened half a step. You planned this. You knew Ethan could do this. I didn't, I said truthfully. But knowing or not doesn't change what you did. You're being cruel, she said. You're ruining our future. You hurt my children, I said. Tell me which of us decided that was acceptable. She hung up. The afternoon blurred into opinions I hadn't requested. Family unity bloomed in group chats the second money was mentioned. Ethan answered none of it. He closed his laptop and went to the living room floor, where our kids had built a fort of pillows and popcorn. He sat with them like the world had narrowed to the only thing that mattered. After dark, Lena came to our door alone. She looked smaller than her voice, tired enough to be honest. Her eyes moved around our living room, the taped-up drawings, the scuffed coffee table, the life we built without needing approval. Can we talk? She asked. We sat where our kids had cried hours earlier. She twisted her hands together and didn't meet my eyes. I didn't think it would go this far. Then you didn't think, I said. She flinched but didn't argue. I told myself it was one party, she whispered, that they wouldn't know. She swallowed. They knew, didn't they? They asked why you didn't like them. That's not true, she said quickly, and then her face folded. I do like them. I was jealous. My kid has been struggling. Tantrums, acting out. I felt compared, and I felt like I was losing. I wanted one day where I didn't feel that. So you made my kids pay for it, I said. Tears spilled. I didn't think it through. I was wrong. You need to apologize to them, I said. Not to me, to them. I will, she said. If you'll let me. That's up to them, I said. And the contract is up to Ethan. She nodded, already knowing the answer. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clear. From now on, gatherings would be quieter, smiles more careful. People would test the edges less. For the first time, no one questioned whether my children mattered. Clarity is heavy, but it holds. I've learned there's a difference between vengeance and standards. One wants to hurt, the other refuses to be bought. When Ethan said he wouldn't partner with people who treat hurting children as negotiable, he wasn't delivering a threat. He was naming a boundary he lives by at work the same way we live by it at home. He laid out the reasoning to me the way he would to a board, clearly, with no heat. The contract pipeline wasn't just numbers. It was a test of judgment, trust, and culture fit. When a potential partner shows you, outside the conference room, that they are comfortable minimizing the dignity of children and then rallies their circle to pressure you into silence, that isn't background noise. That is a governance signal. It predicts how they will behave when the stakes are high and the rules aren't explicit. It predicts what they will justify, who they will throw under the bus, and how they will rationalize cutting corners. It predicts risk. People imagine ethics is about big statements, he said. It's usually about small choices you make when no one thinks they're being evaluated. I thought of my mother's line, "They won't even notice," and felt the weight of all the small choices stacked into one heavy outcome. My phone lit again. Dad. He rarely calls in the middle of conflict. He's the kind of man who tries to keep the temperature down by moving air around it. Practical tasks, changing subjects, light jokes. His voice was quieter than usual. I heard there were complications? Complications, I repeated, and told him what had happened at the aquarium, the crying, the drive home, the phone call with Lena. I left out the contract at first. I wanted to give him a chance to stand where I was standing without knowing the cost chart. He listened all the way through. I don't like the idea of excluding your kids, he said. I don't like what your mother said about them not noticing. That was careless. A pause, then the part that surprised me. And if Ethan decided a business matter based on character, not temper, I can respect that. I wish it wasn't public, but I understand the line he drew. Thank you, I said, and meant it. The relief lasted one breath. A family group call spun up next. I could see the tiled faces like a patchwork quilt, some angry, some performatively neutral, one or two already tearful. Lena joined late. She looked brittle. She opened with accusation. "You could have talked to me before nuking our life." "I tried," I said. "I explained the terms. My kids are not optional." "For one party?" she said, like a bargain hunter discovering a price tag. "You tanked everything over a single afternoon." "You want it to be a single afternoon because that makes it small," I said. "It isn't small. It's teaching children where they rank. You taught mine they ranked last." Mom jumped in, pushing words like sandbags against rising water. "No one is saying they rank last. Everyone has different ideas about parties. We shouldn't turn this into a permanent fracture." I kept my voice level. "You already turned it into a fracture when you tried to convince me invisibility wouldn't hurt. You asked me to trade my kids' dignity for the appearance of harmony. I said no." My brother tried a diplomatic lane. "Look, we all love the kids. Can't we chalk this up to a misunderstanding and move on? Ryan will find another deal. The kids can play together next weekend, and we stop making statements with phones." "It wasn't a misunderstanding," I said. Lena was crystal clear. She decided what she wanted to feel that day and re-engineered reality to fit it. The only misunderstanding was thinking the rest of us would pretend it was harmless. Lena's face trembled between anger and shame. "I wasn't trying to hurt them," she said. "I was trying not to feel like a failing mother for one day." I breathed in, out. "Then you should have asked for help, not found a way to win by making other children lose." Ethan didn't speak. He didn't need to. The knowledge of his decision sat in the call like a closed door no one wanted to touch. An aunt cleared her throat. "Maybe you could reverse the decision, Ethan. Show grace. That would be a strong example for the kids." Ethan looked into the camera, not unkind. "Grace is not the absence of standards," he said. "It's the way you enforce them. I won't humiliate anyone. I won't broadcast details. But I won't attach our name to a partnership that fails a simple test. When you have power in a small room, do you use it to protect the vulnerable or yourself?" I know the answer now. The call dissolved into static arguments. I clicked out. The house felt blessedly quiet. In the hallway, my kids had fallen asleep in their blanket fort. I tucked them in properly and stood for a moment in the doorway, listening to their soft breathing. A simple test, I thought. Pass or fail. In the morning, I made pancakes and pretended not to check my phone. The messages had softened from threat to pleading. "Let's talk. We didn't mean it like that. Can we reset?" I answered none of them. When you've finally drawn a clean line, the worst thing you can do is step in and smudge it with explanations. Later that day, Dad texted me privately. "Proud of you for protecting the kids." I wrote back, "Thank you for saying it out loud." He liked the message. It was a small thing. It mattered. That afternoon, Ethan and I aligned language for when the topic inevitably came up again. No gloating, no triumph. We would say, "We stand by our decision. We choose partners based on character and risk. We keep our home a place where children are safe and valued. We wish everyone well." There would be no counter-campaign, no point scoring, just the line. By dusk, I felt the odd steadiness that arrives after a storm chooses a direction. The damage is real. The air is clear. You can see the horizon again. Lena arrived just after dark a second time, this time carrying nothing. No explanations, no baked goods, no distraction. She stood at the threshold like someone who isn't sure they're welcome, which was the truest thing she'd done in weeks. We sat in the living room. The fort had collapsed into a scatter of pillows. A cartoon murmured from the TV on mute. Ethan was in the kitchen stacking dishes. Not eavesdropping, not leaving. "I need to say this in order," Lena said, fingers lacing and unlacing. "First, I was wrong. Not wrong, but wrong." I waited. Sometimes silence is the most honest invitation. I told myself I wanted one day without feeling less than, she continued. What I actually wanted was to stop feeling judged by a mirror I built myself. It felt easier to keep your kids out than to face that I've been drowning. What are you drowning in? I asked. Not to rescue her, but to see if she would tell the truth. Comparison, she said. Exhaustion. Embarrassment. My kid has been blowing up at school, and I feel eyes on me all the time. I know your kids aren't perfect, but they look kind. They look steady. It made me feel like a failure. So I tried to engineer a day where I could pretend I wasn't one. You chose the wrong engineering, I said. She nodded, eyes shining. I hurt them. I hurt you. I lied to myself about the scale of that hurt. And then, when it started to cost me, I called it revenge so I could feel like a victim. There it was. The sentence that made my shoulders loosen a fraction. Not because it solved anything, but because it named the lie. What do you want now? I asked. I want to apologize to your kids, she said. Not with an audience. Not as a performance. I want to look at them and say I was wrong and ask what they need from me to make it right. If they want nothing, I will respect that. That's up to them, I said. I won't script their forgiveness. I know. She swallowed. And I won't ask you to change Ethan's decision. That's his. I understand why he made it, even if I hate the fallout. You don't have to like the consequences for them to be true, I said. Ethan came in then and sat on the arm of the chair across from us. He didn't radiate menace or victory, just that quiet readiness I know so well. I won't revisit the contract, he said calmly, answering the question she hadn't asked out loud. But I'm willing to say this. I don't intend to punish you, Lena. I intend to be consistent. If over time your choices show you're the kind of person who uses power to protect rather than exclude, our paths may cross differently. My decision wasn't personal. It was about fit. Fit can change when behavior does. Lena nodded, taking in the words like a glass of water she didn't expect to be offered. Thank you for saying that plainly. Plainly is the least I can do, Ethan said. We set the terms for the apology together. Simple, child-centered. No big words, no but, no if. She would tell them exactly what she did, why it was wrong, what she would do differently next time. She would ask what would help now. She would not force a hug, a smile, or a reset. She would accept whatever answer two small people offered. The next day, she returned with Chloe. They stood on the mat, both holding their own hands. My kids were at the table building a city out of blocks. We brought everyone into the same room and then we, the adults, got out of the way. Lena knelt. She didn't look at me for approval. She looked at my children. I made a choice that said you didn't matter, she said, voice steady but soft. That choice was wrong. You do matter. I'm sorry I made you feel small. Next time I will choose in a way that makes you feel included and safe. My daughter watched her the way a small scientist watches weather, skeptical, hopeful. Why did you do it? She asked. Because I was jealous, Lena answered. Not of you, of how kind you are to each other. I wanted a day where I didn't feel like I was doing everything wrong. That wasn't your fault. I'm sorry I made you pay for it. My son slid a block toward Chloe without looking up. You can put this one, he said, which in his language is a kind of absolution. Chloe placed the block very carefully and whispered, I'm sorry too. Tears came, but not the shattering kind, more like rain that washes rather than floods. We let the kids shape the rest. They asked for cake later, not now. They wanted a small, cousin-only makeup afternoon, not a crowd. They wanted to choose the balloons themselves. Lena agreed to all of it. There would be no photos for the family chat, no captions, no proof beyond the memory of being taken seriously. After they left, the house felt bigger. Relief does that. It hands you back square footage you didn't know you had loaned to fear. I leaned on the counter and looked at Ethan. Do you think this changes anything long-term? I asked. It changes the map, he said. People will stop assuming they can walk through us to get what they want. That's enough. That evening, my mother texted. Heard Lena came by. How did it go? I typed slowly. She apologized to the kids. They accepted in their way. We're setting new terms. Mom typed, then deleted, then typed again. I'm glad they're okay. I'm learning. I didn't reply immediately. Learning is a verb. I'd wait to see it conjugated. I stood in the doorway of the kids' room and listened to the soft rise and fall of sleep. Boundaries don't make you lonely, I thought. They make room. For the right people. For true apologies. For children to grow without calculating their worth against someone else's comfort. Tomorrow we would host a tiny party with cake we'd buy together and balloons they would pick. There would be no grand speeches and no audience. Just 4 children who now knew a fact that would steady them for years. When someone tries to make you small, you do not disappear. You get defended. In the days that followed, the house became very quiet in a way I liked. Not the silence of avoidance, no slammed doors, no whispered strategies, but the quiet that shows up after truth has been named and everyone is catching their breath. The first wave of fallout looked predictable. Whispers, speculative texts, and a few brave attempts to relabel what happened so it would sting less. Miscommunication. Escalation. Heat of the moment. None of those words fit. We had not miscommunicated. We had disagreed. We had not escalated. We had decided. And as for heat, Ethan was the coldest, clearest part of the story. He drafted one sentence for when colleagues asked, because they always do. We declined a partnership due to a values misalignment and governance risk. He said it without garnish, then returned to his work. When people pushed for color, he did not give them any. He didn't need a chorus. He needed a consistent life. At home, we practiced the same consistency. We didn't rehearse speeches or coach the kids on what to say. We didn't rewrite family history. We just returned to routine. Homework spread across the counter. Bedtime debates about which book gets the last 10 minutes. Saturday pancakes. We didn't speak about the party unless the kids asked. When they did, they asked small, practical questions, the kind that prove children are natural engineers of meaning. Can cousins pick balloon colors? Will there be sprinkles? We said yes, and meant it. My father called on a Tuesday evening. He cleared his throat the way he does when he's about to say something he has rehearsed. I've been thinking about what I model, he said. When the kids were small, I thought keeping the peace meant keeping quiet. I'm beginning to see that keeping the peace, if it requires someone to be invisible, is just a quieter way to break them. I'm sorry for my part in that. It landed like a clean plank across a gap. Thank you, I said. That helps. My mother took longer. She texted first, softened edges, careful phrasing. Then she came by with a casserole and no lecture, which was new. She stood in the kitchen and watched my kids argue kindly about frosting. I told myself they wouldn't notice, she said finally. I notice I was wrong. She didn't ask for absolution. She set plates, she listened, and when she left, she hugged the children first. Family gatherings changed shape. Smaller circles, lower volume, fewer jokes that require a target. People tried new muscles, asking permission, apologizing without footnotes, choosing not to participate in conversations that weaponize courtesy. It wasn't utopia. It was simply cleaner. The ones who were most invested in the old ecosystem, where comfort passes for love and pressure passes for wisdom, kept their distance. Distance, it turns out, is also a boundary. I asked Ethan one night if he ever regretted the clarity. He shook his head. I don't enjoy loss, he said, but I won't pretend confusion about things that are simple. Protecting children is simple. He paused, then added the sentence he now uses like a doorstop against backsliding. I stand by it. I stand by it doesn't sound dramatic until you realize how many transactions in a family depend on people not standing by anything. It became a rhythm line through our week. When a cousin tried to triangulate, I stand by it. When an aunt sent a paragraph about Grace that ended by asking us to be quiet, I stand by it. When my phone ached with unsent replies, I put it down and said it to myself. I stand by it. There were practical consequences. Ryan scrambled and found smaller contracts. More labor, less stability. Survivable, but humbling. Lena took a different kind of inventory. She asked for the parenting specialist our pediatrician once recommended. She started saying, "I'm overwhelmed," out loud instead of designing environments that hide it. Her face began to look less like glass. On a Sunday afternoon, we hosted the micro party the kids designed. 4 cousins. A cake with too many sprinkles by adult standards and exactly enough by theirs. Balloons in colors that made no sense together and therefore made perfect sense. The apology had already happened. This was simply the proof that we meant what we said about starting small and starting honest. When the last balloon wilted and the kitchen smelled like sugar and dish soap, I stood at the sink and tried to capture the lesson I wanted the kids to carry into the parts of their lives I won't see. It wasn't that money talks or power wins. It wasn't that you should always hit back. It was this. Love with a backbone feels different. It doesn't need an audience. It doesn't deliver speeches. It does the most radical thing a grown-up can do for a child. It refuses to trade their dignity for anyone's comfort. Later that night, my daughter slipped her hand into mine. "I liked choosing the balloons," she said. "Me too," I answered. "That's what we do now. We choose." She nodded, satisfied, and went to brush her teeth. I stood there, listening to the soft rush of water and feeling the floor of our life hold. Clarity has a sound when you walk on it. It doesn't creak. It carries. And when people ask what happened, I know exactly what to say. We drew a line and kept it. We stand by it. By January, the story had stopped being a story and turned into a policy. Not a manifesto taped to the fridge, just a set of choices we made without speech or ceremony. We answered invitations by asking, "Are our kids welcome?" If the answer wasn't a clean yes, the answer from us was no. We didn't explain. We didn't negotiate the worth of children in rooms designed to make them small. Lena worked on a different policy. She kept her apology small and repeated it with her feet. She showed up when invited, left when she was tired instead of building events that erased other people. She spoke to Chloe the way she had spoken to my kids, naming feelings instead of outsourcing them to logistics. When she slipped, she said so out loud. I didn't forgive her on a schedule. I paid attention. Ryan adjusted to the new map the way people adjust to a detour. Fewer lanes, slower time, eyes open. He found work that kept the lights on, and he stopped talking about a single deal as if it were destiny. When we crossed paths, we exchanged ordinary courtesies and went on with our day. We didn't owe each other a reconciliation arc. We owed each other truth and distance. My father began to practice public support the way you practice scales. Awkwardly at first, then with muscle memory. At a small family dinner, he said in front of everyone, "We include the kids or we don't meet." No thunder followed, just a rearranging of chairs. My mother did something harder. She let silence have its teaching time. When someone attempted to label what happened as overreaction, she didn't translate. She said, "Boundaries are not cruelty," and passed the salad. The kids kept building cities out of blocks and asking practical questions about cake. They did not become suspicious of rooms or holidays. They learned that safety is not a promise issued by a calendar. It's a promise enforced by people who love you. They learned that grown-ups can make mistakes and fix them without pretending the hurt never happened. They learned that love can be steady without being soft. I kept waiting for regret to ambush me, the late-night kind that arrives with old photographs and an empty kitchen. It never did. What came instead was a simple sentence that fit in my mouth the way my own name fits. We didn't trade our children for anyone's comfort. There is a cost to that sentence. there is also a return. One afternoon, Chloe came over with a school project about traditions. She asked to interview my daughter about family rules. I braced for something heavy and got something plain. "We pick balloons together," my daughter said. Chloe laughed. "That's a rule?" "It is now," my daughter answered. "It means we choose things together so no one gets left out. There are grander definitions of justice, I'll take that one. You expect a climactic reconciliation, a cinematic lesson, a speech that ties the bow. Real life rarely offers it. It offers repetition. It offers the daily practice of choosing the same line. It offers the knowledge that not all relationships should be restored to their original settings. Some need safer defaults. When people ask me what happened, I don't list dates or forward screenshots. I say, a family asked us to make our children small to keep the peace. We didn't. A man made a business decision he could explain in one sentence. A sister learned that jealousy is not a strategy. Two kids learned their value in a room where nobody clapped. That's the ending. No montage, no late apology tour, no secret deal revived. Just a new rule that travels with us to every table we sit at. If inclusion is negotiable, attendance is not.